Welcome to EPG Pathshala on the subject Social Medicine and Community Health. I am Professor Vidya-mitra working in the Department of Community Medicine, Institute of Medical Sciences, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. I shall be discussing the module entitled National Education Policy 1986. This module belongs to the paper National Health Policies and Programs. This module has been developed by a team comprising of myself as Principal Investigator, Professor D.K. Taneja from Department of Community Medicine, Maulana Azad Medical College, New Delhi as paper coordinator. The module has been written by Dr. Ranveer Paul from the Department of Community Medicine and Family Medicine, AIIMS, Jodhpur, and it has been reviewed by Professor Batati Banerjee of Department of Community Medicine, Maulana Azad Medical College, New Delhi. The learning objectives that has been set for this session are: number one, after the entire discussion, one should be able to discuss the national education policy in detail and describe the recent developments in the education system as per the policy statement. We all know that when India became free in 1947, the partition of the country was the Great Convulsion. There was a high level of poverty and illiteracy in the country, and therefore when Government of India started its planned development efforts, education was considered a very significant input. Since the nation's independence in 1947, the Indian government sponsored a variety of programs to address the problem of illiteracy. On independence in 1947, Maulana Azad, India's first education minister, recommended strong central government's control over education throughout the country with a uniform educational system. The basic purpose was that at the country level, there should be uniformity in the education system so that no one area lags behind. And also there was a central control was necessitated for ensuring quality of education. The national policy on education is formulated with some specific aims and objectives. These are to promote education among India's people, to cover education to Indian citizens from elementary to university level across rural and urban territories. So there was emphasis from elementary education to university education and across geographical boundaries. Under the vision of the then education minister, the Union government established the University Education Commission 1948 to 1949 and the Secondary Education Commission in 1952 to 1953 to develop proposals to modernize India's education system. Subsequently, in 1961, the Union government formed the National Council of Educational Research and Training as an autonomous organization to advise both the Union and state governments on formulating and implementing educational policies. This was a significant achievement. Though it was envisaged long back, it took about 2 decades after independence to formulate the national education policy, and more than even 2 decades. It came into existence in 1986. The first national education policy in 1968 was promulgated in 1968 on the recommendations of the Education Commission 1964 to 1966. Radical restructuring and equalized educational opportunities for national integration, culture and economic development was envisaged. It was realized that simply by linear expansion is not going to make a difference. The education system must be restructured, and education system must provide equal opportunities if you want national integration, if you want cultural and economic development of the country. The policy called for fulfilling compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14 years. So universal education up to the age of 14 years, and for better training and qualification of teachers. It is understood that entire education system, the quality of education depends on two things. One is the quality of teachers, and second thing is that whether the institutional educational environment is conducive for learning or not. And certainly the quality of students also matters. So entire gamut of issues was considered in the policy document, and it was realized that each and every person up to the age of 14 years must have compulsory education. Focus on learning of regional languages also was given, because India is a vast country. There are different types of languages that are being used in our country. Basically, the education system emphasized on 3 language formula to be implemented in secondary education: English language for instruction, official language of the state where the school was based, and Hindi, the national language. So three language formula that was implemented following this. To adopt Hindi as the national language had proven controversial, but the policy called for use and learning of Hindi to be encouraged informally to promote a common language for all Indians. India is a land of diversity. There are huge variation in the different type of language across the country. So English was a common medium of instruction. Regional languages has to be encouraged, but it was also realized that a national language, that is the Hindi, should be the part of it. The policy also encouraged the teaching of the ancient Sanskrit language, which was considered as an essential part of India's culture and heritage. So entire education system was taking into cognizance the ancient heritage and culture in the form of promotion of Sanskrit language, a common medium of instruction as English language, a common development of a common national language, that is Hindi, and promotion of regional languages. The second national education policy in 1986, the second educational policy launched in May 1986, tried to enumerate the problems of access, quality, quantity, utility, and financial outlay. Special emphasis was given on the removal of disparities and to equalize educational opportunities, especially for Indian women, for scheduled tribes, scheduled caste communities. So the emphasis was that education should reach to each and every person in the country. Access of education should be universal, and to achieve these, focus was given on expanding scholarships, adult education, recruiting more teachers from the SC communities, incentives for poor families to send their children to school regularly, development of new institutions and provide housing and other services. The policy expanded the open university system with the Indira Gandhi National Open University, which had been created in 1985. So, expanding the horizon of education through open university education system was considered, and a national university, Indira Gandhi National Open University, was created with the idea that even those who are deprived of higher education, they can get an opportunity to avail through this open university. The policy also called for creation of the rural university model to promote economic and social development at the grassroots levels in the rural India. India has been land of majority of Indians live in rural areas, and therefore concept of rural university was a welcome model, and this model served as the basis for economic and social development. National Education Policy in 1980 has different innovative approaches to cover elementary education to colleges in both rural and urban areas. Innovations are needed for success in any area, and therefore this policy envisaged innovative approaches so that quality of education, standard of education be ensured throughout the country. Innovative approaches of national education policy in 1986, some of them are important role of education was realized. So the national system of education was developed. Education for equality was given top priority. Reorganization of education at different levels so that the equality issues be taken into consideration. Important role of education, all-round development, developing manpower, a unique investment. It was considered that there should be all-round development. Education should not be only the means of earning bread and butter, but it should promote overall development of a person so that he should be able to be useful for the society, for the country as a whole. And it was considered that the human power, education is empowerment. Once a person is empowered in that direction, probably he will be an asset for the country. National education system, concept of national system was created, common educational structure, understanding of cultural and social systems, national support for implementing various programs was considered because there should be a base, there should be an infrastructure to run a particular program. There is a common educational structure, 10 plus 2 plus 3, followed all over the country as per the policy. School education 10 plus 2, pre-primary for 1 year, primary grade 1 to 5, middle grade 6 to 8, secondary grade 9 to 10, and senior secondary grade 11 to 12 was envisaged. The policy is especially for Indian women, SC/ST communities. To achieve these, the policy called for expanding scholarships, adult education, recruiting more teachers from SCs, incentive to poor families to send their children to school regularly, development of new institutions and providing housing and other services, as this was discussed earlier also this point. So the policy especially emphasized on this. Education for equality for women, for SC and ST, other educationally backward sections and minorities and handicapped was given due priority, so that no one is left out from the ambit of educational system, and benefits must reach to each and every person. There may be gradations in the system, but at least basic education must reach to all. The policy was recommending strongly on this point. So, education for all. The current scheme for universalization of education for all is Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which is one of the largest educational initiatives in the world. So India took this initiative, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, and it has been a notable program in the country in the field of education. Mainstream schools for children with disabilities. The need for inclusive education arises precisely because it is now well understood that most children with disabilities can, with motivation and effort on the part of teaching institutions, become an integral part of those institutions. So whatever potentials and capacities, those who are physically challenged, mentally challenged, whatever potentials they have that can be harnessed through educational process. And therefore, mainstreaming or inclusive education system is desired, and policy strongly advocated this aspect. Reorganization of education at different levels: early childhood care and education, primary education, secondary education, vocalization of education, higher education. Early childhood care and education. In our country, we had a program called popularly known as National ICDS, Integrated Child Development Services, and that has a strong element of non-formal education. That early childhood care and education throughout the country, which has been universalized through ICDS, plays a very pivotal role in priming children for higher education, for primary education, for secondary education, and ultimately for higher education. That is, the skill upgradation can take place through early childhood care and education. Education has been made free for children from 6 to 16 years of age. Private schools shall admit at least 25% of the children in their schools without any fee. The midday meal scheme was launched in the schools. It involves the provision of lunch free of cost to school children on all working days, with an objective to increase school enrollment and attendance, improve socialization among children belonging to all castes, and addressing malnutrition. So, this midday meal program, which usually provided 1/3 of a daily energy requirement, half of protein requirement, this brought out social transformation. All different children belonging to different castes used to sit together, take their food. There was a socialization among children, and also this addressed the basic issues of malnutrition, undernutrition particularly prevalent in children. And also this took into cognizance that once the children are well nourished, once parents realize its importance, there will be no dropout once the children are registered in the schools. So, ensuring that there is no dropout of the educational system, midday meal scheme provided significant input. Role of national policy education in secondary education 1986 has been provided for environmental awareness, science and technology education, and introduction of traditional elements such as yoga into the Indian secondary school systems. So, not only coverage was extended that each and every student should be brought into the ambit of education system, it was also emphasized in the educational curriculum that those areas which are pivotal for the overall development, like environmental awareness, like yoga, that was brought into the educational ambit. Making the system work, a better deal to teachers with greater accountability, provision of improved student services, provision of better facilities for institution, creating a system of performance as per the national level. So every effort was made by putting accountability on the teachers, making the environment conducive so that the education system worked for excellence. Implementation of National Education Policy 1986, Operation Blackboard, restructuring and reorganizing of teachers' education, non-formal education, vocalization of education. Modifications of National Education Policy. The 1986 National Policy on Education was modified in 1992. In 2005, a new policy was adopted based on the Common Minimum Program of the Government. Government of India's new education policy: educate, encourage, enlighten. So 3 E's: educate, encourage, and enlighten came into view. Modifications of the national education policy also was done in the direction by Program for Action 1992, envisaged All India Common Entrance Examination for admission to professional and technical programs, a very significant change. Government of India laid down a 3 examination scheme: JEE, All India entrance examination for engineering at national level, state level engineering entrance examinations for state level institutions with an option to join AIEEE. This also solves problems of overlapping physical, mental, and financial burden of students and their parents to the multiplicity of entrance examination. So this was a very significant change. First of all, at the national level will be maintained, and also to solve many problems of students and their parents appearing in multiple examinations. New initiatives taken in the second plan: Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and Right to Education. National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, Inclusive Education for Disabled at Secondary Stage. The basic idea was that the disabled person, the physically challenged person, the mentally challenged person should not be left out from the educational ambit, and whatever potentials they have, that should be harnessed by educational process to the maximum benefit, and so that they can live their life happily. Sachar Bharat Adult Education Program was also initiated. Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, RUSA, was launched. So a number of initiatives have taken place. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan started in the year 2001-2002 with the objective of universalization of elementary education. Government of India's flagship program for achievement of universalization of elementary education in a time-bound manner, as mandated by 86th Amendment of the Constitution of India, making free and compulsory education to the children of 6 to 14 years age group as a fundamental right. The program seeks to open new schools in those habitations which don't have the schooling facilities, strengthen existing school infrastructure through provision of additional classrooms, toilets, drinking water, maintenance grant, and school improvement grants. These school environment had additional benefits as well. Not only it provides a conducive environment for the educational process, but it is also observed that 50% of the activities which children observe in schools that are transmitted to, that the messages regarding them are transmitted to their family members, and therefore education becomes a potential vehicle of social transformation. Capacity of existing teachers is being strengthened by extensive training, grants for developing teaching learning materials, and strengthening of academic support structure as a cluster, block, and district level. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan has a special focus on girls' education and children with special needs. So, inclusive educational process was emphasized on the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, so that when nobody is left, putting maximum efforts on those people who are vulnerable for educational achievements. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan also seeks to provide computer education to bridge the digital divide. That's very important because recently this has been taken to the digital divide in rural areas particularly. This is being taken care of by Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level, as an amendment to the scheme of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan for providing additional components of education for girls at elementary level. This will form part of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and will be implemented under the umbrella of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, but with a distinct identity, with a distinct focus, with a distinct purpose for education of girls at elementary level. Attempt to provide an opportunity for improving human capabilities to all children, and especially the girl child. This has also been formulated for education of underprivileged girls from class 1 to class 8 as a separate and distinct gender component plan of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. The gender component is necessary to achieve universal education for girls in backward areas. Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. This was launched in the March 2009. Objective to enhance access to secondary education and to improve its quality and implementation. Envisages to achieve an enrollment rate of 75% from 52.26% in 2005 to 2006 by providing a secondary school within a reasonable distance for any inhabitation. So, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, the basic purpose was to enhance enrollment rate, and the target that was fixed at 75%. But besides this, it also provided radical reforms in the direction of improving the quality of education. Ensuring universal access to secondary education by 2017, enrollment rate should be around 100%, and universal attention by 2020. What is important is a boy a girl can get admitted in a school, but he should be retained in the system. Not only retained as on a compulsory mode, but it must be an attractive proposition for that particular boy or girl. Access to secondary education with a special reference to economically weaker sections of the society, educationally backward areas, the girl child, the disabled children residing in rural areas, other marginalized categories like SC, ST, OBC and educationally backward minorities. The guiding principles in this regard are universal access, equality and social justice, relevance and development and curriculum and structural aspects. Inclusive education for disabled at secondary stage, launched from the year 2009 and 10. This replaces the earlier scheme for integrated education for disabled children and provides assistance for the inclusive education of disabled children in classes 11 and 12. From 2013, the scheme has been submitted under the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. The aim was to enable all students with disability to pursue further 4 years of secondary schooling after compulsory 8 years of elementary education in an inclusive and enabling environment. Girls with disabilities receive a special focus to help them gain access to secondary schools. The scheme covers all children studying at the secondary stage in government, local body and government-aided schools with one or more disabilities as defined under the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995 and National Trust Act 1999 in the class 11 and to 12. For example, blindness, low vision, leprosy cured, hearing impairment, locomotor disabilities, mental retardation, autism, and so on. So a number of conditions have been identified, and these children can be brought into the educational ambit. Sachar Bharat Adult Education Program has been another important initiative in this direction. Sachar Bharat Mission was launched for female literacy on International Literacy Day, September 8, 2009, with the following a number of objectives. Further promote and strengthen adult education, especially of women, by extending educational options to those adults who, having lost the opportunity of access to formal education and crossed the standard age for receiving such education, now feel a need for learning. To impart functional literacy to non-literates in the age group of 15 to 35 years in a time-bound manner. National Literacy Mission was launched in 1988 and it continued throughout 9th and 10th 5-year plans. Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, popularly known as RUSA, was launched in 2013, which aims at providing strategic funding to eligible states for higher educational institutions. The central funding in the ratio of 65 to 35 for general category states and 90 to 10 for special category states. Very great input came from central funding for Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan. The funding to states would be made on the basis of critical appraisal of state higher education plans, which would describe each state's strategy to address issues of equity, access and excellence in higher education. Objectives of RUSHA: improve the overall quality of state institutions by ensuring conformity to the prescribed norms and standards. Assure transformative reforms in the state higher education system by creating a facilitating institutional structure for planning and monitoring at the state level, promoting autonomy in state universities and improving governance and institutions, and ensure reforms in affiliation, academics and examination systems, ensure adequate availability of quality of faculty in higher educational institutions. Create an enabling atmosphere in the higher educational institutions to develop themselves to research and innovations in order to achieve enrollment targets. Expansion of the institutional base by creating additional capacity in existing institutions, establishing new institutions, correct regional imbalances in access to higher education by setting up institutions in upserved and underserved areas, improve quality equity in higher education by providing adequate opportunity for education to SC, ST, socially and educationally backward classes, and to promote the inclusion of women, minorities and different groups. The Consortium for Educational Communication. This is one of the inter-university centers set up by the University Grants Commission of India. Realizing the importance of television to act as a means of educational knowledge dissemination, UGC started countrywide classroom programs in the year 1984. Media centers were set up by various universities. Subsequently, the Consortium for Educational Communication emerged in 1996 as a nodal agency to coordinate, guide and facilitate such educational production at national level. The objective of this commission has been close coordination, facilitation, overall guidance and direction towards the activities of the media centers set by UGC in various universities throughout the country, dissemination of educational programs through broadcast as well as non-broadcast modes, and production of educational programs audio, visual and web-based and related support material, further setting up of appropriate facilities for such production. Research activities related to organizing the effectiveness of such program. Merits of National Education Policy 1986. Deep concern has been shown by then Prime Minister in formulating National Education Policy. The nationwide debate was conducted for formulation of the policy. The program of action was chalked out, and the Ministry of Education was renamed as Ministry of Human Resource Development. The idea was that overall development and technology component was brought into the education system for wider dissemination and quality assurance, and to make it more attractive programs, including the initiatives taken by UGC and Ministry of Human Resource Development. Just to summarize, finally, National Education System is an optimum policy for development of education in remote areas, especially for SC, ST, handicapped, backward, minorities and women. Indian government introduced it for the development of nation, and it was successful to a large extent. People come closer by the help of education, and just because of this policy, India's education system is third largest system among all nations. Finally, the recent initiatives by Government of India in terms of bringing technology into the educational process for wider dissemination has very strong potential for higher education. Thank you very much for visiting EPG Pathshala.